Sheldon stands alone in the empty room of his house, the final day. Soon, he'll be heading to Caltech for good. Missy walks over and asks him something simple. Will you remember me? Any brother in the world would pull her into a hug. Say something warm, anything. And what does Sheldon do? He gives a small smile and tells her he has an eidetic memory, so he has no real choice but to remember her. His sister poured her heart out to him, and he responded with a fact. Classic Sheldon. And here's the thing. This moment isn't really about Sheldon being cold. The whole scene is built around Missy, about a girl who spent her whole life going unnoticed. Sheldon here is just a wall she's talking to. I always assumed Young Sheldon was a story about Sheldon Cooper. You know, the guy from The Big Bang Theory. I mean, it tracks, right? His name is literally in the title. For 7 seasons, we follow this tiny genius growing up in Texas, and the main character, the protagonist, the center of everything. But honestly, that's a massive misunderstanding that pretty much every viewer makes. Because if you actually look closely, the whole picture flips. Sheldon is not the main character of his own show. He is genuinely the least important person in this entire story. And I'm not just saying that to be provocative, I truly believe it. So let me try to break down why. Hey, grab a spot on the character lab and settle in. Let's talk about what actually makes a character matter. An important character is one who changes. Someone who faces hard things, falls apart, rebuilds themselves, and ends up different by the final scene. That's the core of any story worth telling. But if you put Sheldon from episode 1, 9 years old, next to Sheldon in the finale, 14 years old, there's barely any difference. Practically none. He is the same person. In the first season, Sheldon chokes on a hot dog and swears off solid food entirely. One ordinary everyday stressor sends him into a complete spiral. His parents have to drag him to a therapist. The reaction is, to say the least, unusual. Then his mom refuses to let him do something, and out of pure frustration, he scrubs the entire house spotless. He can't control his mom's choices, so he controls the house instead. His mom won't sign a permission slip for a field trip, so out of spite, he secretly applies to Harvard. His playbook never changes. Either escape, shut down, or use his brain as a weapon. In the 7th season, his father dies. That's about as devastating as life gets. And how does Sheldon respond? He sits down in a chair and goes completely still. He simply cannot run death through his logic and come out the other side. He doesn't cry at the funeral. In this version of him, that just doesn't happen. He doesn't say a single thing to his family about how he's feeling. Instead, he sits there spinning alternate timelines in his mind, picturing himself as a Star Trek character with the power to go back and fix things. He can't shake the guilt of having ignored his dad on the last morning of his life. So he just keeps rewriting that morning again and again. And 27 days after the funeral, he's sitting through a grief sermon, cracks open a brand new laptop, it's a gift from the doctors, and starts working. When the people around him stare, he dismisses them. And that's the moment it really hit me. This is the exact same response he had at 9 years old. Run away, shut down, hide behind intellect. 5 years have passed, his father is gone, and the guy hasn't shifted even slightly. There's one more detail that's almost unsettling. In the very last episode, his mom asks the kids to pray and picture their dad's spirit sitting at the table with them. This is the moment his mom needs someone to hold her up. And what does Sheldon do? He flatly refuses to acknowledge the spirit because ghosts aren't real. It contradicts the laws of physics. Being scientifically accurate matters more to him than offering the smallest bit of comfort to a mother crushed by loss. And when he finally agrees to get baptized for her sake, he shows up in a wetsuit to avoid catching germs from the water. In the voiceover, adult Sheldon notes with cool detachment that the ear infection he got anyway was worth it. His mom was happy. Even his rare moments of kindness are calculated. His mom's distress at home would cause him more discomfort than 1 minute in questionable water. I didn't even clock this at first, but the writers did it deliberately. This isn't sloppy storytelling. Chuck Lorre literally said that Young Sheldon is Sheldon in progress. But in progress doesn't mean heading toward healing. It means he's slowly building up the armor we already know from adult Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. So what's the trap the writers were in? They couldn't let Sheldon actually grow because in The Big Bang Theory, the adult Sheldon is emotionally closed off, self-absorbed, and oblivious to sarcasm. If young Sheldon developed empathy and turned into a relatively normal teenager, the entire franchise would fall apart. The continuity wouldn't hold. So they put a hard ceiling on him. Every time he edged toward genuine emotional growth, the writers reset him. And that was the first thing that tipped me off. From there, it gets stranger. There's a concept in storytelling called a MacGuffin. It's an object, a briefcase, a document, a secret that the entire plot orbits around. Everyone chases it, risks things for it, fights over it, and changes because of it. But the object itself is hollow. It has no meaning of its own. It's just the engine that drives interesting things to happen to the people around it. Sheldon in Young Sheldon is a MacGuffin. He himself is fixed and unchanging, but his mere existence, his brilliance, his needs, his demands generates an endless chain of crises. And those crises are what force everyone else to evolve? Sounds like a reach? Okay, let's look at the actual evidence. Season 2, George Sr. gets offered his dream job, a head coaching position at a college in Tulsa. A real shot at lifting the family out of financial struggle. A career he's wanted his whole life. And what happens? It comes up over Thanksgiving dinner. The family starts talking through the move, and Sheldon immediately panics at the idea of any disruption to his routine. He completely unravels, bolts from the table, and George quietly turns the offer down. And yes, Mary plays a role too. She gives George zero support, as usual, but the father buries his own dream for the sake of his son's stability and the family's peace. And the most painful part, nobody really acknowledges the sacrifice. It's just absorbed and forgotten. Sheldon doesn't take anything from this. He doesn't grow. He doesn't register what his dad just gave up. He's simply a trigger. The episode is really about the quiet tragedy of a man who starts disappearing from his own life right at this moment. In the first season, Sheldon asks for a computer, and look, he genuinely needed it for his work, and I get that. But on the show, this one request blows everything open. The family is broke. It turns out Mom has been secretly squirreling away money for years without telling her husband. They have a brutal fight. She packs up the kids and leaves for Mima's. Sheldon gets the computer. The cost of one small desire, another crack in his parents' marriage. He didn't do anything cruel. He barely did anything at all, but everything around him detonated. The darkest stretch is in season 4. Missy is nursing a broken heart after her first relationship falls apart. She's hurting and taking it out on everyone nearby. And Sheldon? He sits in his room complaining that it's too noisy and he can't concentrate. He doesn't do anything outright malicious, but Mom immediately defaults to Sheldon's side and demands Missy apologize, without once asking her daughter what happened. And that obsession of Mary's, optimizing everything for Sheldon at the expense of everyone else, finally becomes too much. George erupts. He tells Mary everything he's been holding in for years, that she's laser focused on Sheldon alone and has stopped seeing the rest of her family. George ends up at a bar and grows closer to their neighbor Brenda. Missy runs away from home. In one episode, the whole family is hanging off the edge, and Sheldon is the invisible center of gravity that pulled them there. You see the pattern? It keeps repeating. Sheldon gets bored at school. He pushes to be driven to college lectures, so Mima becomes his personal chauffeur. She ends up in that classroom, meets Dr. Sturgis, and that becomes a whole multi-season arc of her own, all because her grandson got restless. Sheldon participates in a twin study, and the real growth happens to someone else entirely. The tests reveal that Missy has remarkable emotional intelligence. She sees straight through the psychologists, reads their own unspoken problems back at them, and the parents watching through the glass realize for the first time just how much they've overlooked their daughter. Sheldon goes away for a stretch to a school for gifted kids in Dallas, and back home, the house goes eerily quiet. The family discovers that without the constant chaos of managing Sheldon, they don't actually have much to say to each other. Their shared life had been held together entirely by putting out his fires. Everywhere you look, Sheldon doesn't act. He simply exists. And the people who grow, fracture, and transform are everyone around him. Even his atheism functions this way. He casually plants a seed of doubt in Missy about the Bible, and that single offhand comment triggers a full-blown crisis for Mary, a church scandal, a confrontation with the pastor, and Sheldon walks away having learned nothing. He's a stone dropped into still water. The ripples belong to everyone else. Now the third piece. While Sheldon stays frozen, look at what the people around him actually go through. It's not even close. Georgie. At the start, The slow older brother, the jock, the punchline everyone lands on because his little genius sibling skipped grades and ended up in the same classroom as him. Look at who he becomes. His instinct for business surfaces early. He flips discounted snow globes to nostalgic Texans and turns a profit. He drops out of school to pursue it. His dad, furious, kicks him out, and Georgie doesn't fold. He sets up in the garage and starts covering his own bills. At 17, he finds out Mandy is pregnant. He doesn't disappear like most guys his age would. He steps up. He has a panic attack during the delivery, but he's still right there beside her. And when his father dies, it's 19-year-old Georgie standing over the casket and making a promise to carry the family. And he does. He buys the tire shop that becomes the foundation of his future business. From a punchline to a real man and the backbone of his family, that's a genuine arc. That's transformation. Missy. The girl with invisible feelings. That's how she described it herself to Meemaw way back in season 1. You couldn't write a more precise image of a child's loneliness. A kid living in the shadow of a genius, overlooked for years because the entire household runs on Sheldon's schedule, his phobias, his dietary restrictions. She lives through the ache of first love, teenage rebellion, stealing her dad's truck, and disappearing. Through a tornado, huddled in a ditch on the side of a road, she finally breaks through with her father, tearfully asking him to forgive her for all of it. Then, in season 7, with their mom and Sheldon away in Germany, 15-year-old Missy becomes the woman of the house. She manages the budget, keeps everything running, essentially becomes her dad's anchor. And then she loses him, the one person who always saw her through the invisibility. Her grief at the funeral is raw and unfiltered. No drama, no performance, just fury and loss. George Sr. In The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon spent years painting him as a dim, drinking, unfaithful man. Young Sheldon gave us the real version. A worn-out, loving father who gave up everything quietly. His shot at Tulsa, his dignity when the school callously replaced him with his closest friend. Whether that man was actually a friend, that's a whole other video. And in the end, he loses his life. A heart attack at work just days before the family was finally supposed to move to Houston and start something new. He never made it to the moment he'd been waiting for. And Mary, from devoted, overbearing mother to a woman shattered by grief, betrayed by the church she'd given her whole self to. A scandal rocked her community. The institution she'd served faithfully for decades turned its back. By the finale, she holds on to religion not out of genuine faith, but out of sheer survival, gripping it so she doesn't completely come apart. That's the same rigidity we recognize in her from The Big Bang Theory. See the gap? Georgie, Missy, George, Mary, Meemaw, every one of them walked through fire and came out fundamentally changed. And Sheldon pulled down his sleeves and stayed exactly who he always was. And that's not a metaphor. In the actual finale, adult Sheldon literally rolls up his sleeves. The creators confirmed they did it deliberately, as a callback to the Sheldon we know from The Big Bang Theory. You can put a grown man's sweater on him, give him a wife, children, a Nobel Prize. He'll still roll up the sleeves. And here's a fair pushback, but do the numbers actually support this? They do. In the early seasons, Sheldon drives around 80% of the storylines. By season 5, that drops to roughly 40. By season 6, it's somewhere between 25 and 30. Mandy's pregnancy, Meemaw's legal troubles, Mary's breakdown at church, George's death, all of it plays out largely without him. The title character, by the end of his own series, had become a background figure in a comedy he used to own. And the thing that really locks it in, after the show wrapped, they launched a spin-off, Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage. About Georgie. No Sheldon anywhere. The franchise quietly set its genius aside and kept going with the people who used to stand behind him. So why does any of this matter? Here's the point. Young Sheldon was never a story about a genius learning to understand the world. It's actually the inverse. A story about ordinary, incredibly resilient people who broke pieces of themselves so that this genius could have a future. Sheldon bends the orbits of everyone in his atmosphere while remaining a cold, motionless center. And here's the part that lingers. There's a fan theory that the adult Sheldon, the one narrating these memories, finally did grow up. That becoming a father changed something in him. And now, looking back, he understands for the first time what an impossible weight he placed on the people who loved him. The whole show in this reading is his quiet way of saying thank you and of saying sorry. Whether that lands for you or not, drop it in the comments. I'll keep making videos in this universe. Thanks for watching. The Character Lab is always open, and it only gets better from here.